As film critic Roger Ebert stated in a retrospective review, modern movies begin with Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, and that while jump cuts are the most famous aspect of it, it was revolutionary for its tone of seeming moral irreverence. In it is Patricia, an artsy American journalist in Paris, and Michelle, a Humphrey Bogart idolizing gangster. It ends with the former betraying the latter to the police, culminating in this final scene. Here, the film jumps time from a medium shot of the police to a long tracking shot of Michelle. The non-diegetic jazz horns signal Michelle's pain and shock in lieu of a reaction shot, achieving a climactic tone. The mise-en-scène places him in the center third of the frame, the crosshair, as he staggers left and right as if to avoid it, trapped by parked cars and buildings. The most interesting bit here is the framing. The cops aren't shown, so it looks like Michelle is just running from Patricia. Additionally, normal people are walking by, breaking the literal immersion of the viewer. As is the case with most of his movies, the fourth wall in Breathless is broken, and like theater, the actors occasionally acknowledge the audience at level. Godard readily admits that the situation is fake, yet the emotions, dilemmas, and sentiments of the characters are true to life. One of the subtle ways Godard turns up the impact of dialogue is by not showing the speaker.
Qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit?
Il a dit, vous êtes vraiment une dégueulasse.
It's as if you hear the voice of judgment in your head. Thus, the visible reaction becomes all the more powerful. In the same way, he uses the opposite effect, lingering on a character's face to highlight their vanity. By cleverly juxtaposing references to art, literature, and pop culture with those of current and historical events, Godard's films called the viewer to consider ethical questions. For example, Guns and American Cars are a mainstay of his '65 film, Pierre Le Fou, representing idealized, reckless freedom. And his 1968 film, Weekend, uses historically informed intertitles to comment on the surreal capitalist wasteland it portrays. Godard's most famous use of color is arguably in This Party, where harsh-colored lighting accentuates the superficiality of the partygoers' conversation, which are dominated by the consumerist culture. Yuck, Godard says.
Coiffure souple et légère, retenue toute la journée grâce à un nuage d'indexation.
More subtle is another scene later on. The scene begins with two lovers, blue for the literary Ferdinand and red for the impulsive Marianne. Mozart's non-diegetic violin concerto functions as a sort of inner monologue.
Et on régalera.
Vous voyez, elle pense qu'à rigoler.
À qui tu parles?
Spectateur.
Godard's fourth wall breaks show that the characters, like us, are altered by their fantasies and self-perception in real time. Instead of considering their situations from the exterior, we empathize with them through their own self-awareness.
Allez, dis pas ça. Allez, dis pas ça.
Godard creates the illusion of passing time by the repetition of dialogue and soundtrack. Instead of having actors act out emotion, Godard used cinematic techniques to, as critic Richard Brody stated, signify emotion and thus arouse it in the viewer. Godard's use of hypertext is pronounced in many of his films, including Weekend and Pierre Le Fou. In the beginning of Weekend, these titles set the tone, with the latter somewhat mimicking the introduction to The Twilight Zone. This infamous scene from Weekend comprises a 7-minute lateral tracking shot. As the morally bankrupt couple rides across the countryside to take inheritance from the wife's father, the mise-en-scène itself is borderline playful, chaotic but linear. However, this is what it sounds like. Between the clock jumping half an hour in the span of a few seconds and the start and stop of the musical score, the sequence gets even dizzier. Later on, Godard takes these temporal hijinks even further when he uses months of the French Revolution calendar to mark the film's final lapse into anarchy. Film historian Libby Saxton notes that Godard believed tracking shots created a question of morality for the viewer. In Weekend, he created a self-contained world with mise-en-scène, a world of one straight, inconvenient line where people take shortcuts past all the spectators to get what they want. In short, Godard didn't just pioneer new film techniques, but completely tore apart the rule. His experimentation inspired auteurs like Scorsese, Tarantino, Ackerman, Lynch, Wong Kar-wai, and countless others. In my opinion, if you want to just enjoy movies, you can watch Breathless and pretty much leave everything else. That's like where postmodernism starts. But if you want to understand film and want to know why stuff like Pulp Fiction and Evangelion exists, then you won't get far without this stuff. Peace.